Dorelle Anderson, the newly created Northern Territory Regional Controller, has handed down her report on the violence that's been plaguing Alice Springs, which of course we won't get to read until next week. The report was commissioned last week and you and I barely think this can scratch the surface of the litany of problems present in the Alice. As you've seen from the headlines, it's now widely reported that grog bans will be reintroduced, including in town camps, and rightfully so. But these should never have been removed. The warning signs were there, as I've shown you, from both Labor MP Marion Scrimshaw and CLP Senator Jacinta Nampijinka-Price. Now, you've got to wonder if the fact that Senator Price is introducing a bill to the Parliament next Tuesday to bring these bans back in is why they're finally back on the table. But even with the evidence stacked up against her, the Chief Minister, Natasha Fyles, who ditched these grog bans in the first place, today won't concede they were the problem.
What I acknowledge is right now in Central Australia, and it is more than just alcohol, listening to the community, we need to make sure that we see that investment and that we drive it into the programs that we know won't just sugarcoat this and make it go away for a few months. We need to address these issues into the future, and that's what I aim to achieve.
On top of the recommendation for new alcohol bans, there are calls for increased funding to help tackle the crime. The absence of funding, I'll say it again, isn't the issue here. It's how the funding's spent. Here's the Mayor, Matt Patterson, again on this very point.
I don't think necessarily the money is our issue here. I think we get enough money, you know, as Territory, as a welfare state, we certainly get enough money. But there is no accountability for these service providers.
All week I've brought you voices from on the ground in Alice Springs, the politicians, the community leaders and the locals who've had enough. These are tough people willing to have a crack, but as the baker Darren Clark said to me, so many of them are ready to pack it all in.
When you've got blokes here that work out bush and their houses are being broken into and their wives are at risk and their children are at risk and the poor bugger's out there earning a buck, and he comes home and his wife says, I'm taking the kids on, we can't live like this anymore, but he can't leave. He can't leave, you know. This is just bullshit. You can't expect people to live like this. Just because we're nervous, we don't know what's going on, and we're just putting our money in the bank. We're putting our money in the bank, and so we can go. Like I was talking to a guy the other day, he's got a very successful business here, and he's at the stage, he said, I can pack mine up in a couple of days into containers and go. And he said, I'm nearly at that point. And I said, I'm the same. I can pack this up. I've got 4 shipping containers. I could have this done by Monday afternoon and I'll be out of this town.
During our chat, Darren broke down again and again. You could see how much he cared, but how futile it all felt. It doesn't help that some have sought to politicise what's happening in the Alice. We saw the despicable interviews rolled out by the ABC attempting to cast those trying to save their town as racists, white supremacists even. From what I saw and heard from locals, this couldn't be further from the truth.
In Alice Springs, if you live in Alice Springs, you have to understand culture, you have to understand people, but you have to accept that you're in Central Australia. The majority of people here are Indigenous, all right? They were here a lot longer than us. They were here to start with. So, I have really good Indigenous friends, you know, and I've got mates, and I don't see them as Indigenous, I see them as mates.
Ben there is not an Aboriginal man. He just runs a local business and cares. And he spoke at length about how he and his wife foster Aboriginal kids, and they want to try and make a positive impact in the community.
But it is rewarding. You know, you get so much. You get what you put in, you get back out. We will end up with a child to look after, and you know, you give them a bit of stability. You help them sort of get on a path, and it's rewarding, you know. And
the people of Alice know there's no quick fix for what they're living through, but they're also sick of being used as an excuse for inaction. They've also had enough of others talking down the community they love, and this is where the ABC stands condemned. Let's wait to see what the PM has to say when he finally releases the report that's on his desk and sets out his plan to help Alice Springs. But if he's short of solutions, he can just vote to support Jacinta Price's bill next week and maybe even get her and his own MP Marion Scrimshaw down to his office, have a cup of tea, ask them. After all, he wants this Aboriginal voice to the Parliament. Don't worry about that, PM. You've already got 2 voices there in your Parliament now, 2 strong Aboriginal women. Just listen to them.